Hey mathematicians, in this video we're going to work on the problems from page 2, and even though every problem has its own little trick to it, there are still 3 main questions that you can always keep in mind when you're trying to decide what you need to do in order to solve this equation. The first question you need to ask yourself is there any place that you can distribute? And in problem number 7, there is a place we can distribute because that -8 sitting next to the 6n plus 1 in parentheses does indicate that you're going to end up multiplying -8 by using your distributive property. So that is the first thing that I'm going to do in order to solve this problem. I'm going to, not do that. I'm going to distribute. So I'm going to take the -8, multiply it by 6n, so that gets me -48n. Then I'll do -8 and multiply it by +1, and that gets me a -8. So I've just done the first part. I did my distributive property. I'm going to go ahead and draw a line down the middle of my equal sign. Well, actually, I kind of made it off to the side, and so then I'm going to ask myself my next question. Question number 2 is, can you simplify on one side of the equal sign or the other? So if I look at the right-hand side of problem number 7, I have a 48n and an 8. These are not like terms. They're not the same. One's a variable, one's a number. So that means that my answer to question number 2 is no, I cannot simplify the right-hand side. So then I'll turn my attention to the left-hand side of the equal sign. And once again, I don't have anything that I can simplify on the left-hand side either because I don't have like terms. Even though they're like terms, I cannot combine those. And the reason I can't combine those, so they're on opposite sides of the equal sign, so we can't put those together. So question number 2 is a big fat no. I cannot make anything more simple, so I need to move on to question 3. The main idea for every equation there is the variable isolated? And notice that just says the word variable, which means that you should just have one variable when you're finished. So one of these variables is going to need to go, but it really doesn't matter which one. I personally always get rid of a bigger negative if I have them because I have a tendency to really mess up with my negatives, or at least I did when I was your age in school. So because of that reason, I am going to cancel out that -48n. But here is how I'm not going to do it. Okay, I'm getting ready to do it in a way that is wrong. A lot of us think, oh, I'm going to cancel that out by dividing because the 48 sitting there is multiplication. The reason I don't want to do that is because that would cancel out the 48, but it leaves the n behind, and we want to get rid of the n also. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to cancel out that +48, or that -48n, by doing a +48n. So those are going to cancel each other out. That -8 is going to come down because I haven't done anything to cancel that yet. Because I added 48n to the right, I also have to add 48n to the left. And so I'm going to add it to these n's because those are the ones that are like terms. I'm not going to add it here because 8 and 48n are not like terms. So I'm just going to add it underneath the n. So I have 48 n's. And remember that technically there's a 1 in front of that n. So this is going to give you 49n on the left-hand side. That -8 needs to come down. And now on the right-hand side, we still have that -8. So continuing with trying to figure out how are we going to get this n isolated. How are we going to get it by itself? Now we just have a two-step equation. So I'm going to cancel out the minus 8, and I'm going to do that with a plus 8. So that's going to cancel. That's going to leave me with 49n. What I do on one side, of course, I have to do on the other. Now, those two are going to cancel out also, but I have to have something on this side of the equal sign, so I'm going to put a 0. And then last but not least, to isolate the n all the way, I'm going to divide both sides by 49, because the 49 sitting next to the variable means multiply. What's the opposite of multiplying? It is dividing. So I've got the solution of n is equal to 0. So you'll just type 0 right there in the answer box. Don't put the variable, or else it's just set so that it'll count it wrong, even though it's technically correct. So I know that's a lot of steps, but that's okay. We're going to spend lots of time practicing this. Okay, for problem number 2, what I'd like for you to do is pause the video for a minute, write the problem down, and see, based on how this problem is laid out, what is the answer to question number 1. Can you distribute anywhere in that problem? So pause the video, try that out yourself for a second, and then restart the video when you're ready. Okay, I really hope you paused it and tried it yourself. So we do have some distributing that we can do right there, because the negative 4 is sitting next to those parentheses. So that means I'm going to do negative 4 times 1, which is negative 4. Negative 4 times negative 6p. Negative times a negative is a positive 24p. I'm just going to bring down the minus 2p and bring down the rest of the equation. Question number 2, can you simplify? And it's got to be on the same one side of the equal sign. So I'm going to draw my little imaginary line that kind of goes here through the middle. So take a minute, pause the video please, and see if you can take anything on one side of the equal sign and make it a little bit more simple. Okay, hopefully you paused the video like I asked you to do. So if I look over here, I've got a 23 and I've got a p. Those are not like terms, so there's nothing I can do to make that side more simple. So I'm just going to leave it be for a second. I'm just going to rewrite it. And then on the right-hand side, though, I have a 24p and I have a minus 2p. So those are like terms, so I can put those together. So 24p minus 2p is going to leave me with 22p. And then that negative 4 just needs to come down. And that's going to be a plus 22p, because this 24 minus 2 is a positive 22. My next step is that I need to isolate. I need to get down to just one variable and get it all by itself. Right now, I have two variables. I have a 3p and I have a 22p. So one of those needs to go. It doesn't matter which one you get rid of. I'm going to get rid of the 3p because I feel like that's just a little bit easier to do. So the opposite of a plus 3p is going to be a minus 3p, because that's going to cancel it out. I still need to bring down the negative 23. Since I subtracted 3 p's from the left-hand side, I'm going to subtract 3 p's from the right-hand side. So that gets me 19p, and it is a positive 19p. So I'm going to bring down that negative 4. So here we are so far. Now my p is still not, so now I got it down to just one p, but now I need to get that p by itself. So I need to isolate it. So I need to get rid of the -4 with a +4. I know that I need to do it on both sides. So here, that would give me -19. Those will cancel. And I just need to bring down my 19p. And last but not least, to fully isolate the p, I need to cancel out that multiplication because the 19 sitting next to the p means multiply. The inverse of that is division. So that's going to leave me with -1 is equal to p. Just type -1 into that box. And take your time, pause. If you need to rewind this, go back and look at those steps. Believe me, I understand that. It's all good. Okay, here we are with number 9. So pause the video. Try to distribute first. And I'll be right back with you. Okay, I'm going to assume that you paused the video and that you've tried it out yourself first. So here we actually have 2 places that we're going to do distributive property this time, not just one. So I'm going to take -8, multiply it by +4. That gets me -32, and there is an x there. Then -8 times 1 gets me a -8 because a negative times a positive is a negative. Then I have a -7. Remember that minus on the outside of that 7 does make it a negative. So -7 times +x is -7x. And then -7 times -1 gives me +7. So I just did distributive property to get everything out of those parentheses. And I'm going to just write the other side of the equation over on the right-hand side. So step 1, I distributed. Step 2, now we need to look and see, is there something we can do to simplify? And it's got to be on the same side, right? So I'm going to give you guys a clue before you go. This is all the same side of the equal sign. So look and see what you've got, if anything, that you can put together. Pause the video, try your best. Go ahead and try to put together, if you can put anything together. Combine any like terms you might have. Hopefully you paused that video and you tried it out yourself. So -32x minus 7x. Those are like terms that you can combine. So if you put those together, that is going to get you a -39x, because you're combining those two negatives. -8 plus 7. You've got a -8 plus 7. That is going to leave you with a -1 after you combine those two together. And so now that we've got that left side a little more simple, I'm going to bring down everything. So we were able to do a little bit of simplifying there. And so now, after we've simplified on one side, the last bit is that we need to isolate that variable. We need to get that variable all by itself. So I'm going to get rid of that -1 with a +1 on both sides. So that cancels. The -39x needs to come down. And then over on the right-hand side, -79 plus 1 is -78. And to get rid of that -39x, the inverse of multiplying is, of course, dividing. So we're going to divide both sides. So we've got x is equal to +2. Number 10, I'm going to start going a little faster. Pause the video. Take a look and see, is there any distributive property that you can do in this equation? Okay, I'm hoping you did what I asked and you paused the video, you tried it yourself. So we've got distributing we can do here and distributing that we can do here. So I'm going to do negative 6 times 7r, which is negative 42r. Negative 6 times negative 2 is plus 12. Negative 7 times 8 is negative 56. And then there's an r with it. And then last but not least, negative 7 times positive 4 is negative 28. So now that I've got my distributing, I'm going to bring down the other side of the equation. Step 2 is to look and see, can you simplify anything? Do you have anything that you can put together that's on the same side of the equal signs? Remember, this is one side, this is the other side of the equal sign. So pause the video, see if there's something that you can combine to make that a little more simple. Hopefully you paused the video. So we've got this and that we can put together because they're both r's. So if I combine that, that gets me a negative 98 and an r. Then I can also combine a positive 12 and that negative 28. If I do 12 minus 28, that'll get me a negative 14. Sorry, just joking, minus 16. Something was bugging me there. Sorry, I added that wrong. So that 12 plus negative 28 is negative 16. Sorry about that, guys. Let me bring down the other side of the equation. So now we've put together everything that we can put together on that same side of the equal sign. So now we are just going to do step 3, which is to isolate. So to get rid of that minus 16, we're going to do a plus 16. So that cancels, leaves you with 0. You can't just like ignore that side of the equation. So you got to actually write something there. But that cancels, but you don't need to write the 0 because you still have that negative 98 r that you can bring down. And finally, I'm going to divide both sides by negative 98. So I've got the solution 0 is equal to r. Okay, number 11. Take a minute, pause the video, see if you can distribute, if there's something that you can distribute. So I'm going to assume you paused the video and that you tried it so you can distribute in both of these areas right here. So the first thing I'm going to do is distribute this. So 2 times 4x gave me, oh, wrong color. Can't see that very well. 8x. And then 2 times negative 6 gave me negative 12. Over here, negative 3 times 1 gave me negative 3. And then negative 3 times negative 4x gives me plus 12x. Pay attention to the fact that that equal sign is right there in the middle. That's going to be important to keep things lined up. And that x that's just kind of been chilling needs to come down to join everybody else. Step 2, pause the video. See if there is anything that you can do on either side of the equal sign to simplify. And then restart the video to check. So I have on the right-hand side That is not like terms. There is nothing that I can simplify on that side. However, on this side, I do have x's that are on the same side. So technically that's a 1. So if I have 8 x's and I add another x, that's 9x. I'm just going to bring down the minus 12. Can't do anything to make this side more simple. So I'm just going to bring it down. And for my last step, I need to isolate. So that means I need to get down to one variable first. So I have variables. I've got a variable here, and I've got a variable here. One of them needs to go, but it doesn't matter which one you get rid of. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the 9x. It just makes sense to me to get rid of the one that's smaller. And I'm going to cancel it out by doing a minus 9x. So that will cancel. I've got a minus 12 that I need to bring down. I subtracted 9x from the right side. So I'm going to subtract 9x from, I'm sorry, I think I said right. I subtracted 9x from the left. So now I need to subtract 9x from the right. And I need to subtract x from x. They've got to be like terms. So that leaves me with 3x. That negative 3 needs to come down. And what else is still keeping my x from being isolated? So I've still got that minus 3. So I'm going to cancel that out with a plus 3. So negative 12 plus 3, that'll give me a negative 9. That will cancel. And I'll bring down that 3x. And finally, I need to divide both sides by 3 so that negative 3 is equal to x. So I'll just type negative 3. Okay, last one, number 12. You guys have been such troopers. I know these are a lot of steps. I know there's a lot with them. I promise we are going to spend so much time practicing these, and eventually you're going to be like, oh yeah, it's just going to click for you, okay? So step 1, check and see, can you distribute? Pause the video and see, can I distribute? Hopefully you paused the video, you tried it out yourself. So where can I distribute? I can distribute here because I've got the 5 sitting next to the 7 minus 2x. And I can also distribute here. I'm going to do this one first. So 5 times 7 is 35. 5 times negative 2x is minus 10x. That plus 8 is just kind of chilling out there. It wasn't part of that distributive property, so we just brought it down. Now the right-hand side is a little tricky with that distributive. Remember, there's technically a 1 there, and there's actually a minus 1 there. So negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. Negative 1 times 6x is minus 6x. So I did step 1, which is to distribute. Your next step is to determine whether or not do you have anything you can simplify, anything that you can put together. And you've got 2 sides of the equal sign. So take a look over here and see if there's anything you can simplify. Take a look over here and see if there's anything you can simplify. Pause it, try it yourself. I'll be right back. So I'm going to assume you paused the video and you took a look. Okay, and you tried it. Okay, so here, 35 and 8 are both on the same side of the equal sign, and they're like terms. So we can put both of those numbers together, and if I combine those, I get 43. The minus 10x just needs to come down because I can't combine the 10x. Over here on the right-hand side, 1 and 6x are not like terms, so I can't put those together. So I'm just gonna bring them down. So I'm done with all the simplifying I can do because I don't have any more like terms on the same side of the equal sign. So last but not least, I need to isolate. I need to get one variable, and I need to get that one variable by itself. So it doesn't matter which one of the variables I get rid of. I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of the minus 10x though, by doing a plus 10x, and I need to do it on both sides. So I'll bring down the 43. That's going to cancel. Over on the right hand side, I've got that -1 that needs to come down. And then I have -6 plus 10x, which is plus 4x. So the last thing we need to do is to get rid of that -1 with a +1 on both sides. And divide both sides by 4. So we got our final step of 11 is equal to x. I really appreciate your attention, guys. I know that these were a lot of steps. I know like you felt like you were doing a lot. Hang in there. We are going to get it. I promise. I really appreciate your patience and your effort.